Hello and welcome to episode 122 of PubShorts. We call it Success Story. My name is Dr. KK and I'm the Innovation Officer. And impersonating a Wisconsin native is Tony O'Rourke. Who doesn't like me calling him that?
I wear a checked shirt and it says I'm from Wisconsin. No disrespect to people from Wisconsin, of course. Lovely place.
Okay, Tony, introduce yourself and the show.
Hello.
Yeah.
Thank you, KK. Yes, and my shirt is also not from Wisconsin. I'm Tony O'Rourke. I'm Vice President for Partnerships here at Inago. Welcome to the latest episode of PubShorts, where KK and I talk about stories relating to the world of academic publishing and research, whether it's technology, policy, whatever it might be. If it's a story of interest, we like to talk about it. And we like to give each episode a theme name after a British rock or pop song. And this episode is no different. This particular episode is named after a song by The Who, actually written by John Entwistle, the bassist of The Who. He didn't write many songs, but he wrote some good ones.
Yep.
Called Success Story, which is from 1975. The song's cynical take on what making it, being successful, means is this week's story about new metrics, reimagined workflows, and how tools like the J-metric and AI-powered platforms can redefine success in academia.
And that somebody has to take with a pinch of salt, because I intentionally put the J metric in. It's a last story that we'll cover as the quick hit, and but we have important things to talk about. And the first one, Tony, are you ready for the first story?
Make it so.
Yes. Okay. So we are talking about an archive preprint titled DocuEval, an LLM-based AI engineering tool for building customizable document evaluation workflow. So if at all you're wondering why we are evaluating or talking about engineering tools, because it is in the scope of peer review. So this tool helps create custom workflows for document evaluation using LLMs, and it addresses challenges like customization, accuracy, and scalability in AI document evaluation. It supports defining reviewer roles, which also are, you can think of it as reviewer personas, setting evaluation criteria, and choosing reasoning styles. Now, why is it important, Tony? Because in the context of peer review, there are different people with different, let's say, tenures and experience, different subject areas, different types of manuscripts. So you might need to customize peer review AI assistance systems, and thus, this is relevant, and it also ensures traceability with logging and configuration management. And this paper also evaluates a real world case of academic peer review, which is used to show how the tool is helpful. And the paper summarizes use cases and challenges in AI document evaluation. So, Tony, I'll pause here and ask for your thoughts on this once you sort of went through what I just explained.
Thank you for the 1 second preparation. No, you're absolutely right. That's kind of the challenge with peer review, and I think that's one of the things we're going to see moving forward is how you'll be able to tweak and engineer AI-based peer review reports to try and not necessarily emulate. Well, emulate's probably not a bad word. The kind of the style and reasoning of an individual.
Right.
I mean, that the reality is, as you rightly say, you send a paper to two different academics, two different reviewers, and you might get two completely different results based on their experience, based on their background, based on their understanding of the subject, maybe even based on what mood they're in that morning when they get the review. There's any number of factors which might influence positively or negatively the outcome of the review. So it's interesting to see this as being happening within document evaluation as well. AI document evaluation, interesting.
Right. This paper documents a lot of things, including how the tool looks. I've scrolled to the place where there's a screenshot, apart from obviously evaluation engines and data management and the workflows and everything. So the user interface layer allows document upload and workflow customization, and the core processing layer handles parsing, segmentation, and criteria management. The evaluation engine orchestrates workflows and provides evidence-based assessments, and data management ensures persistent storage and retrieval. And obviously, like how Tony, you and I always insist that AI guardrails need to be put in place for any AI-related workflow automation in the context of, let's say, scholarly publishing. Guardrails are in place to prevent unreliable behavior, and there's a human oversight layer as well. So altogether, this checks a lot of the boxes that when you look at AI peer review assistance systems, most of the features that one needs is sort of covered in detail. And anybody who's interested in AI for peer review should find this a very useful resource. So, Tony, now that you heard the entire story, any further thoughts?
No, I'm interested to see how this progresses, and I'm interested to see how we're still at an early stage in the use of AI-based peer review tools,
Hmm.
but I do suspect they're going to be adopted quite quickly over the next couple of years. So it'll be interesting to see whether this thinking how that might influence the development of some of these tools.
Right. Once again, this is very comprehensive. So some of the things that I found, apart from the notes, that you have reasoning strategy as a drop down. You can select it, and you can have different weights. If suppose, let's say, for a particular, let's say, publisher or a journal, you want different weights for novelty, rigor, or presentation, whatever it might be. You can set it, and it is eminently customizable from a publisher slash journal slash peer reviewer point of view. I think this
Yeah.
is what publishers are looking for. An excellent sort of paper, thanks to the Scalene blog, which led me to this. So thank you for that. And yeah, that's it. So I'm excited about it, and I'm ready to move on to the next story. Tony, are you ready?
Yes.
All right. So we are talking about citation verification. This is yet another sort of archive preprint that came to my notice. I think this was through, if I'm not mistaken, Journalogy. So this is titled AI powered citation auditing, a zero assumption protocol for systematic reference verification in academic research. So this is very relevant because of a particular facet which Tony you can talk about, because you publishers have asked you about it. So this obviously is a new methodology for auditing academic citations or reference citations, and the paper introduces an AI powered system designed to systematically check references in academic research. It addresses the problem of widespread citation errors, approximately 20%, and the time consuming nature of manual verification. Now, the core of the solution is a zero assumption verification protocol where no citation, Tony, is assumed correct until it's checked against multiple databases. So there are two aspects to it: no assumptions and multiple databases. So
Mm.
this approach uses agentic AI with tool use capabilities, allowing it to query Semantic Scholar, Google Scholar, and Crossref. So I'll pause here. What do you think of it so far?
I am in favor of tools which will verify the veracity of citations. Absolutely. I think anything that there is an increasing problem with gamification in citations, citation clubs and
Right.
citation factories, whatever they're called.
Cartels.
Uh, sorry?
Citation cartels as well.
Citation cartels.
Hmm.
Yes, yes, yes.
Yeah.
Um, I Yes, I mean that's really what I have to say at this stage. I suppose my one concern so far is the fact it's limiting. I say limiting. It's not that it's much of a limit, but it's limiting it to three resources: Semantic Scholar, Google Scholar, and Crossref.
Hmm.
There are other resources that could be referenced, and perhaps if they were to go into more detailed subject-specific
Hmm.
um, uh, reference analysis, they should also be including the likes of PubMed, for example, or Inspec for
Hmm.
engineering, or etc.
Yeah.
So, but it's an interesting start.
Yeah, so I think it's not an exhaustive list. It's basically says that it can query many databases. That's the main thing.
Yeah,
And so one thing that I want to bring. So the reason why I said it is very interesting is that this is one of, I guess, one of the first tools or methodologies that claims to be able to detect hallucinated or fabricated references, which is something
yeah,
that increasingly
fabulous.
publishers have to be, to be wary of. So
Yeah,
this seems to claim that, because that's a problem that's difficult to crack, because hallucinated reference cannot be checked against the database because they are just simply made up, and so you can return the sort of output that you cannot find a citation against many databases, but that does not prove that it is hallucinated. So hence, wider coverage is required to sort of use this methodology. So I think this tool takes care of it. So continuing with the research itself, the methodology was tested on 30 documents, totaling 2,600 references approximately, including student work and published papers. And the results show a high verification rate, 91.7% on PLOS papers, and a low false positive rates, 0.5%. That's a very low false positive rate. So now the key errors detected include fabricated references, retracted articles, and incorrect publication details. And a major benefit is the drastic improvement in time efficiency, with a 916 reference doctoral thesis audited in just 90 minutes. Now, that still seems for an automated solution on the higher side, but at the same time, it is not just that this tool is doing everything. It is probably surfacing information that needs to be manually or a human vetting is required, and that's the reason why there is 90 minutes. But this is a problem. Peer reviewers, we know that, Tony, we have interviewed peer reviewers, and I have seen enough resources which detail how a peer reviewer works. They do not usually get time to check the veracity, as you said, of all the references in a paper that they are
Yeah,
reviewing.
and that's the biggest one of the biggest pain points for
Yeah.
publishers is increasing number of papers, increasing number of submissions, increasing number of papers that are being accepted. Is the amount of time that's being spent in verifying the references. I
Yeah.
think so. Anything that can help improve that. And to do 916 references in 90 minutes, including human oversight, that's not a lot of time. That used to be a day's worth of work
Yeah.
for a
True.
for a publisher. So no, I think it's an interesting piece of technology development.
Yes, and one thing that, at least from my understanding, there are tools, for example, like the grounded AI citation verification. It's called Veracity. Now, that actually checks the semantic, let's say, veracity of a citation with the study in the in the reference work itself. Now, this does not do that. This is a data-based sort of checkup, so that aspect is not covered. But otherwise, it does way more than most tools do, and I'm inspired to improve our own citation reference quality checker with all the sort of additional features in the future. So, any thoughts on this, Tony, and also publisher / journal viewpoints on citation verification?
No, I think I've said all I need to say on this.
All right, great. So, moving on to the third story. It is titled "Why Peer Review Invitations Get Ignored." It is from the Profi blog. Insights from both sides of the inbox. Did you get a chance to read this, Tony? Yeah.
I only very briefly skimmed it.
Yeah. Okay. So it is very interesting in the sense that the main problems that Profi's blog, the article lists, are that most invitations get deleted quickly. The solution isn't more invitations, but better ones. And reviewers look at journal names first, and this is a quick signal of quality. So I'm a reviewer, I'm getting an email, and I look at the journal name for which I'm supposed to do this review. And if I don't think that it's a high quality journal, then I might just simply ignore it. And then they check if the topic matches their interest. And also, reviewers want to review papers that they would eventually read anyway, which I never thought of, which makes sense. And generic invitations, like in the sense, if you are using some sort of an email automation and you send generic invitations, you might get rejected, or the review invitation may not go through. In the sense, people are not going to act on it. So, reviewers also seem to use a 3-second filter: journal legitimacy, topic match, and invitation quality all together. So, this is what they are looking for. And one other thing that is mentioned is that basic personalization of the email still doesn't work. Just maybe instead of using "dear reviewer," so say "dear KK" or something, that doesn't work. But meaningful personalization, like referencing a reviewer's specific work, is key. That's very thoughtful, I thought. I mean, isn't this part of sales and marketing strategies across the board, Tony, in terms of meaningful personalization? What do you think?
Um, well, look, why does anybody want to buy anything? People buy things. People accept things to meet a certain need. And if you're getting 20 reviews a day,
Mm-hmm.
and you're getting 20 review invitations a day, and 19 of those review invitations are kind of covering subjects that are not particularly interesting to you, or don't particularly in your mind challenge you or move you forward in any way, why would you accept?
Right.
And when you're time poor already, so anything that you can do as a reviewer to personalize the invitation, I think it's a wonderful thing. Again, there's probably a finite period into how long that could last. Because if it's over 5 years, 5 years worth of personalized invitations will probably be less meaningful than at the very beginning. But as long as it evolves, as long as there's always finding new ways of to be able to entice and attract the reviewer, and make them want to do the review,
Mhm.
and make them want to look forward to doing the next review because they had such a positive experience, then bring it on.
Yep. Well, one of the recommendations is that for publishers, that is, publishers should focus on match quality, the quality of the match, rather than just keyword selection, and that means more than just keyword selection or keyword based matching is what the blog concludes. And researchers can help by declining irrelevant invitation and accepting well targeted ones. So I guess in terms of matching strategies, if you improve it and then you personalize it, to the in a deep personalization in terms of referencing, let's say, the reviewer's work or something like that, and sending more sort of narrow spectrum invitations which have a higher chance of being accepted, is probably the right strategy. And obviously AI based automation can help move things along in terms of reviewer matching as well as deep customization. Any
Yeah,
further thoughts on this? Have you
no,
heard from any
I agree. I agree with all of it.
Yeah. All right. So, moving on to the last main story, we have more quick hits than main stories this time. So, interesting. First time, probably. This is a Nature News article. Women seem to retract fewer papers than men, and I'm sure that you will have comments on this, Tony. So it's a study about gender and retracted scientific papers, and this study looked at almost 900 retracted medical research papers, and it found that women are disproportionately underrepresented as authors in these papers. So women filled only 23% of author slots on retracted studies. And I don't know the other value, in the sense, if it's a non-retracted study, how many slots were filled by women. And this is even lower than the general representation. So we don't know the exact number. The study used an AI tool to predict the author gender based on the first name, second, middle name, and last name, what gender it could be, which is something obviously as a limitation that all such studies document. And one possible reason for this is suggested that women are less represented in senior roles, and which leads to fewer responsibilities and risks associated with retraction. So, do you think that is the main case, Tony, in terms of
Um,
representation in high roles, women?
Look, I mean, I can only base this on my own experience.
Mm-hmm.
So in my last two publishing roles, I worked in physics and I worked in healthcare.
Mm.
In physics, it was absolutely right. You know that there were far fewer female professors of physics or academic researchers in physics in that sector than there were male.
Mm.
So therefore, one would expect the number of citations and potentially then therefore retracted citations from women to be fewer because there were fewer of them working in that research area. Why that's the case, I I I don't know. I still think there is a gender bias in even at sort of pre-university level, um, and a lot of work's been done to try and encourage more women going into those areas. It was a reverse in healthcare,
Yep.
particularly in the area of nursing.
Mm-hmm.
Where
Yep.
the vast majority of roles um, were female. Although interestingly enough, a lot of the professor roles within UK universities were male rather than female,
Mm.
and which I thought misrepresented that kind of ratio between male and female nurses. So I think no, I'd like to see more.
Mm.
I'd like to see the ratios change. But the most important thing for me
Mm-hmm.
is that it's the right person doing the job, regardless of their gender, regardless of the background.
True.
If it's the right person with the best skills or the most appropriate background, then they should be the person doing that work.
Yeah, that's right. So this is all speculation anyway. So the other reasons speculated in the paper are that socialization may also play a role. So what does that mean? With men being socialized as risk takers and women as detail oriented, which means that they might actually end up committing more, let's say, research related risks, which eventually turn out to be research integrity issues. And team dynamics, finally, could also be a factor. Men tend to rotate team members more often, potentially leading to less trusted collaboration. So
I
in
mean,
that,
I would like to see a study. I'm sure there is a study out there. Look at all the retracted papers from the last, I don't know, 20 years.
Mhm.
What proportion of those across all sectors are from male and female researchers, first authors? That would be an interesting study.
Mm.
And I suspect you're probably right. The behaviours are different in the lab,
Yeah. Yeah.
so maybe that's one of the factors that might explain it.
Right. Okay. So quick hits time. 5 of them. For the first two being a two-parter on the Scholarly Kitchen, interesting. It is an interview, and so the first part is titled "Guest Post: Science as a Story, Memory as Infrastructure." A conversation with Trevor Owens, Owens, whichever way
Owens.
Owens. Okay, so this is a conversation that Wendy Queen had with Trevor Owens, and Trevor Owens is from American Institute of Physics (AIP). So he discusses his work at the intersection of humanities and sciences, focusing on preserving the record of physical sciences. He explains that his interest started with a history of science course, which has led him to work on the infrastructure of memory across various institutions. So this is also like I guess it's a little too dense for many people, but he emphasizes using humanities and social science methods to advance society, particularly empowering positive change in the physical sciences. And he highlights AIP's mission to support member societies and conduct research that fosters positive change in the physical science community. Also mentions how AIP uses storytelling and context to make history and philosophy of science more accessible, citing examples like their history newsletter and spotlights on books and oral histories. And he finally notes that this approach has led to increased engagement, like a rise in remote attendance of an event after it was featured. So, it's philosophy, I guess epistemology, all of it. But what did you think of the first part of the interview, Tony?
Um,
With your background in physics as well. So, I mean, from the point of view of physical sciences, learning from humanities and social sciences in terms of communication, scientific communication, and sort of audience engagement.
I think this is another great example of how the physical sciences community is very, very keen to ensure there's a broader
Mm.
public understanding of science. They were talking about the research impact 30, 40 years ago. When I was working at IOP in the Institute of Physics in the late 90s, early noughties,
Mm-hmm.
one of our journals was actually called Public Understanding of Science. It was one of our oldest journals as well. It was over sort of 40, 50 years old. There is a clear a need for physics to be widely embraced. It needs to be understood, and therefore, the importance of trying to sort of use different techniques to do that, I think, is valuable.
Right. Moving on to second part of this. This was published like a couple of days ago, I think yesterday, if I'm not mistaken, 25th. So the first one came out a week ago. And so this one is part two. And in this, I think Owens discusses how digital tools are reshaping the study and presentation of history of science, and highlights the increased scholarly usage of online oral histories. So he notes
Yeah,
that AIP is now broadly inviting members of the physical science community to document their stories and lives for preservation and access. And so
yeah,
the author, Miss Queen, emphasizes that this is a shift from preservation done to a community to something co-created with them, and that shift is significant. So co-creating content with the community as opposed to presentation to the community, and this redefines the architecture of cultural memory. So these are all like fascinating concepts in terms of communication, science communication. And she also points out the challenges of metadata, context, and care in preserving not just the artifact but the intention behind it. So basically, having rich metadata to support whatever content that one puts out into the world, so that you have the context built into it, which is important from the point of view of maybe training artificial intelligence based systems in the future as well. So I'll pause here. Any thoughts on these points so far?
Um, I think the word shift is
Mm,
probably too strong, but I do agree that think of the historian of the future, the sort of the researcher of the future. They want to understand the background to research. It's one thing to have the documented record. It's another thing to have some kind of institutional memory where people are interviewed, where there's documentation of the background to the research, where there's oral histories where you can find out. Oral histories are not
mhm,
unusual in the humanities, as Mr. Owens will know very well,
mm,
and they're used very successfully in teaching, things like literature, community studies, social sciences to a large extent.
mm,
But they are less popular, or at least less prevalent in the hard sciences.
mm,
So no, I think as a resource and as a measure of how you curate science, I
mhm,
think having some kind of that the more I think about it, that could and should be the role of the institution as well, is producing a pack of materials or histories, interviews, whatever it might be,
Hmm.
that support material that's been produced, so that the researcher of the future can engage with the author and find out, what brought them to that stage, what brought them to that conclusion.
Right, right. And the last point, which I strongly recommend our viewers to read these two articles, take some time to think about all of this. But the last point that's very, I thought was very interesting. This is from the author Wendy, Miss Queen. She suggests that the meaningful collaborations often occur at the edges of disciplines where boundaries are porous and new ideas can take root,
Yeah,
valuing complexity and contradiction. So this is important, and we all want things to be simpler and straightforward, but sometimes they are not. There's a lot of gray, but interdisciplinary gray. And she concludes that humanities can help reimagine the frameworks within which science is understood, and that interdisciplinary work, when approached with intellectual humility, expands methods and creates richer, ethically attuned, and human work. I absolutely love this concept, and I mean, I recommend this. Tony, any other thoughts on this?
the only thing I was going to say, and this is not particularly new, but interdisciplinary research has really been kind of the mantra for the last 20 plus years. The increasing number of journals, publications that are brought out there sort of go across 2, 3, 4 subject areas. You know, so how do you define that community? That community is getting broader and broader, but you still have to make that content engaging for all parts of that community, depending on their background. You give somebody a high level physics paper collaborating with a social scientist. How do you then express those ideas, those thoughts, those theories to the social scientists, and how do you make the social science comments
Hmm.
relevant to the physicist
Excellent.
in the way that they think? They think in different ways, but no, interdisciplinary research has very much been the one of the reasons why there's been so much growth in scientific output in the last 20 years.
Excellent point. And moving on to the next quick hit, I think these scholarly kitchen articles should not have been quick hits because there's so much to talk about. So this one is from one of our shared favorite authors, Hong Zhu, from the Scholarly Kitchen, reimagining scholarly publishing workflow, a high-level map of what changes next. So in terms of technology, how things are shifting. So what Hong says is that preprints can become research accelerators by adding more automated enrichment, verification, and discovery features, and submission systems can be improved with AI co-pilots to check for scope, quality, and compliance before editors see the work. So basically,
Yeah,
pre-editor screening at both the preprint and the publisher level. Then
yeah,
screening and integrity checks should move from reactive detection to proactive assurance through clear policies and better tools. Excellent point. Peer review can be sped up with AI assisting in tasks like literature checks, feedback synthesis, while keeping human in charge or human in the loop. And
yeah.
production workflows can use AI for initial passes of copy editing and typesetting, with humans handling quality assurance and nuanced decisions. So this covers pretty much the entire sort of phase of research publishing. And finally, publishing platforms need to be API first and machine ready, as discovery is moving beyond traditional websites to AI assistance. And but there's one more point, sorry. Dissemination and discovery need to focus on visibility in AI search, which is generative engine optimization, as much as traditional search engine optimization, SEO, by providing structured and trustworthy content. So excellent, excellent points. I wish I would be able to write things like this, Tony. What are your thoughts?
No, he's really, I think, defined the next 3 to 5 years in terms of the growth, the increasing influence, importance of preprints, the way that content metadata is going to change to reflect, the different types of the way content's been created. No, I think he's absolutely hit the nail on the head here. Great article.
Yeah. All right. Now, the actual quick hits first from research information from Access to Answers Knowledge as a Service. This is an analysis and opinion article. So, this basically says that the scholarly publishing industry is shifting from a focus on access to content to access to answers, driven by increasing volume of research queries and the rise of AI. And publishers need to evolve to provide to be or into providers of knowledge as a service by offering structured, linked, and context-rich information that is machine readable and trustworthy, which is sort of very similar to what Hong just said in the or rather the article, the points from Hong's article. And this involves leveraging existing capabilities in content analysis and moving up the value chain to become curators of context. Remember, curators of not content but context, ensuring the integrity and interpretability of research. So, wonderful points. Any thoughts on this? I mean, have you heard of Steve? I mean, have you read more of Steve Smith's?
I haven't read of Steve. I think we spoke about Steve Smith because didn't I say Steve Smith was the drummer of Journey? I think we may have spoken about Steve Smith in a previous episode.
Yeah, and
Um,
we know about a cricket captain of a team who's
yes. Let's not talk about that. Particularly after the debacle on Saturday.
yes.
Yes, indeed. Thank you for that reminder. No,
Always welcome.
yeah. Cheers. I look forward to England playing India once again. No, I tell you one thing that strikes me about this. I think he's absolutely right. You look at how just everyday use of things like Google takes place there, and so the information, not particularly not always brilliant information, but the information that you get back. I suppose my one thought about this is if we move from access to content to access to context and answers, what that does is shifts the role of the library within an institution. When one of the things I've said about this before, one of the things that defines a library historically was providing access to the kind of content that will make sure that the kind of top level, high level research can continue, that they've got resources available to them that can support those resources. If you no longer need to have access to that material, because all you need to have access to is some kind of generic in the cloud context machine, what happens to that content? I think it is interesting. I think, and what we're going to see, platforms will become increasingly sophisticated and provide better analysis of the content that's available within their reach. So maybe you have more detailed answers for the content that you actually own or that you have licensed access to.
Right. And
but again, for the open, this is a dream question for the open access movement.
And I love the phrase "the context machine." I'm going to sort of revisit that. I think that can be used to communicate a lot, and I think the world is moving toward that. Anyway, moving on to I guess a humorous, a satirical piece. So this is a career column, which might be misinterpreted. I did misinterpret it when I first read it, but it's purely satirical. So this is a proposal for of a new academic metric called the J index. And the author notes that science has become obsessed with numbers and metrics, and he proposes the J index. Tony, what is J index? It measures the physical weight of books authored by a scientist divided by the years since they earned their doctorate.
So say again, your laughter has hidden the second part of the answer. So define what it is again.
It measures the physical weight of books authored by a scientist divided by the years since they earned their doctorate.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Okay. I think this has lots of academic value. Let's move on to the next quick hit.
No, the point of this is that obviously it's a critique on the H index, or let's say
it's a critique on generic metrics.
Yes.
On the growth of metrics. There's so many metrics have emerged over the last 10 years, 20 years. Yet it still seems to be focused largely on the impact factor.
Yeah.
But no, I jest, of course. It's a humorous piece. It's a nice quick read.
Yeah, it's a McDonaldization of academic research, which is being commented on. If at all you
you get fries with it.
Well, you might also get a non-zero Coke with it. Anyway, that does bring us to the end of this episode 122, success story. So Tony, if because our podcast, PubShorts, is a success story, and there are 121 episodes to prove that. So where can a discerning listener view all or listen to all the previous episodes?
Yeah, so all the episodes are available on our PubShorts playlist, either on YouTube. Just search Inago PubShorts, and you'll see all previous 121 episodes on there. We encourage you to press the like button, share with your colleagues, and make suggestions in the comments in the suggestions in the comments box about future episodes and what we should be talking about. And we look forward to hearing from you.
Yep.
I mean, one of the great successes, hopefully, is the fact that it's no longer monsoon season in India. So I understand, because you're based in India, aren't you, Kate?
Yes.
Yeah. How does that change? How does that change your life?
Well, it is sort of quote unquote winter, even though I'm in Bombay, which doesn't really have a like multiple seasons apart from the rainy one and the hot one. But this
Yeah,
does open up, Tony, in my life, motorcycling avenue. So I actually interesting. I'm actually going out for my first seasonal motorcycle ride. Not too far, but it's about a 4 hour ride, going up the hills and coming back. This Friday. So looking forward to it. Thank you for asking.
fantastic. Wear a helmet. Be safe.
Not just a helmet. I have the full protective gear on,
Good,
including
good, good.
motorcycling boots and everything. Do you ride, Tony?
No, I don't. No, I don't. And in fact, I have my family have a kind of a. We've actively discouraged all of our children from active motorcycle riding, but that's another story.
All right. So, which might come up as a sort of tidbit at the end of a future PubShorts episode, but that'll have to be in the future, as I said. So
Maybe
until
that's something that'll come up between episodes.
and until then, this is Dr. Kiki signing off on behalf of all the people who help us. And bye, Tony. We'll see everybody in the next one. Bye.
Yeah, see you in the next one. Bye.